Thursday's bell ringer. Again, we begin with capitalization. We should always capitalize the first word of a sentence, always. What else do we see that we could possibly capitalize? Have you read the poem, Why Nobody Pets the Lion at the Zoo? Well, we see because it starts with the poem, and then we have this punctuation here, followed by the quotes. This tells us that all of this here is the title of our poem, and we should capitalize the important words of a title. Now, what constitutes an important word over a non-important word? Well, we always capitalize the beginning, so no matter what the word is in the beginning, it gets capitalized. And then really, you just kind of go by length of word. If it's a fairly long word, it gets capitalized, like nobody. But pets would be considered an important word, even though it's short, because it is the subject, essentially. But the words like the, a, at, an, to, for, those small kind of insignificant words that we use all the time, they do not get capitalized. So that would be what we capitalize in this first sentence. Number 2 is looking for punctuation. Mary, have you seen my binoculars? All right, the very first thing we need to do is decide what end punctuation we need. And what I notice here is the word have. Have is a question word. So have you seen my binoculars? Question mark is what we need at the end, right? I've had kids who want to put quotation marks around this. We would only put quotation marks if it had what we call a tagline, where it would say, Miss Exum said, Mary, have you seen my binoculars? Then we would have quotes, because quotations cannot be sentences all by themselves. They have to be inside a sentence. So you're always going to have a tagline if there should be quotes. So no quotes here because there's no tagline. However, we do have what we call an introductory address. We are talking to a person and we are using their name. We are addressing them. Anytime we do that, whether we do it at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, we have to set off that address with commas, okay? So, Mary, comma, have you seen my binoculars? Or have you seen my binoculars, comma, Mary? That would work as well, okay? So, this is considered a direct address. We are talking to that person using their name. Parts of speech. We have James, and what did James do? He jumps. Well, we know James is a person, and we know persons are nouns, right? Or people are nouns. What did James do? James jumped. We know jump is a verb because it's an action. But what jobs are these nouns and verbs doing? Well, James is the person doing something in our sentence, so he is also our subject, which makes him a subject noun. And does he jump anywhere, or does he jump in a certain way? No, he doesn't. The action stops with the verb. That makes this verb intransitive, an IV. And when we diagram that, we diagram it just the same way we did on Tuesday. We would draw our baseline. We would put our subject noun on the baseline. We would separate our subject noun from our predicate, which is jumps. So our subject and predicate are separate, just like that. And then we want to combine these two sentences together. Lasers were first introduced in 1957. An American introduced them. The first thing we look for is repetition. I notice that introduced is repeated. And them is really talking about the lasers, right? So I don't really need them. I can get rid of that too. I then look for a definition. I don't really have, lasers aren't defined, Americans aren't defined. We don't really know what they are. We just know when they were first introduced. So all we have to do now is add an American somewhere in this sentence. And there's lots of possibilities. I could say lasers were first introduced by an American in 1957. I could say an American first introduced lasers in 1957. Lasers were First introduced in 1957 by an American. So there's lots of different ways we can choose here. I'm just going to pick one. Let's see, lasers were first introduced in 1957 by an American. Alrighty, that is Thursday's bell ringer. Let me know if you have any questions.